VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
And friends, thank you for joining us on Crosstalk here on VCY America. Though it's not our topic today, I still just want to mention the very fact that very troubled by this photo that came out of President Trump looking as if he were the Messiah, as if he were Jesus Christ, his face over that and putting his healing hand on someone. I know there's a lot of controversy on that, but when I saw this, it was just, I thought of the word blasphemy. I was repulsed by the image, and I did think of King Nebuchadnezzar as he was so proud about his Babylon that he had rebuilt, that later he was reduced to that of eating grass like an animal. But just want to make that comment so that it doesn't go by unnoticed here from us at Crosstalk, but very repulsed by the photo itself. I know there's various explanations, some backtracking going on for that right now, but certainly did not feel it to be appropriate at all. Well, friends, wrapping up yesterday in Washington, D.C. was the 72nd Bilderberg meeting. It was a 4-day event bringing together a who's who in the area of business, technology, even political world leaders. Attendees represented industry, finance, academia, and also the media. A significant number came from Europe and a group from North America. They operate under what is called Chatham House Rule, in which participants are free to use the information received but cannot identify the identity nor the affiliation of the speakers or other participants. They participate, or rather they indicate that there is no detailed agenda, no resolutions are proposed, no votes are taken, and no policy statements are issued. So what is going on behind these closed doors? Also meeting this past weekend in Detroit was the National Lawyers Guild, a group advancing Democratic Socialism. Some say it's representing communism. It was a convention featuring keynote speaker, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. We'll also be talking on that today and talking about what happens with these groups, what is their background to them, and why we should be concerned. Joining us, we welcome back William F. Jasper. He is an investigative reporter and senior editor at the New American Magazine. He is an author, journalist, and commentator, and for more than a few decades, he has served as an accredited correspondent at the United Nations in New York and UN summits around the world. Bill, welcome back here to Crosstalk.
Thank you so much, Jen. Good to be back.
So, Bill, let's begin with the Bilderberg group that just had their 72nd gathering of Western power brokers in Washington, D.C. What is the genesis of this group? We're going to try calling William F. Jasper back. He is in a remote location and seeking to have him comment on this meeting taking place in Washington, D.C., the 72nd Bilderberg meeting. Again, this was a 4-day event. Bringing together many in the area of business and technology. Even the media was engaged with this, academia, part of this, as well as some government officials in Washington, D.C. as well. We're still seeking to get a hold of Bill. And friends, you're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America. Some important things that have been taking place here with the Bilderberg Group hosting this what some have referred to, the New American has referred to it as the global deep state, the Bilderberg meeting taking place in Washington, D.C. And certainly, as they have met in years previous, globalists have met before to really plot out the world's future. But nobody is saying there's no resolutions and a very, very difficult period of time for this to take place. We are right now just getting Bill's voicemail, so we're continuing to try to get a hold of him here. But not only was this going on, but also the National Lawyers Guild taking place in Detroit, Michigan, and this also being a very troubling aspect here to it as well. So, okay, we've got a ringing sound right now here for our guest, and seeing if we can connect with him. I will say that Veronica Kraylenko, who is with the New American, did do a story here this last week pertaining to the Bilderberg, and mentioned it as a meeting that was held, 70-second gathering taking place, and really talking about a number of issues, according to their official release, talking about AI, Arctic security, China, digital finance, and several other issues here as well. And Bill, we got you back with us?
I think so. Those
Okay.
Bilderbergers couldn't keep us down.
Okay, thank you. We're glad we're able to connect with you. And so, Bill, what is the genesis of this group?
Yeah, so they've been around quite a while. It's been over 70 years. They began in 1953, had their first private meeting, first open one where they brought membership together, was in Bilderberg, at the Bilderberg Hotel in the Netherlands in 1954. And that was convened by Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, who, incidentally, was a Nazi SS trooper in World War II. He sided with the Nazis. But from the very beginning, it was very clear that this was a high-level banker and financier and business operatives, corporate bigwigs, and the movers and shakers in European and American government. The most notable name through most of those years was David Rockefeller. He was the chairman of the Chase Manhattan Bank, chairman of the Rockefeller Foundation, and chairman, of course, of the Council on Foreign Relations, and then later in 1973 was chairman and founder of the Trilateral Commission. So there's a very intricate connection between the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderberg Organization, the Trilateral Commission, three of the organizations that are that people who have been studying deep state and the people that are really running not just our country, but the finance structure of the world and most of the world governments through the United Nations, the G20 and the G7. Those are three of the most important organizations, and Bilderberg is the most exclusive of them. It's only usually, this year I think it was the Bilderberg meeting, where they post it. So they say, we're not a secret organization. We post our participants. They said there were 128 that were invited, and I think close to that attended. And, they gave the names of them, and maybe you want to run through them, or maybe you have some particular ones you want to focus on. But this has been going on ever since, and we've chronicled it back in the 1960s and 70s at the New American Magazine. Before the New American Magazine, we had two publications that we combined into the New American. That was American Opinion and the Review of the News, the former being a monthly journal, Review of the News being a weekly. And we covered it every year. And, of course, the mainstream media just completely ignored it most of the time, even though many top reporters and media executives were included in Bilderberg at the meetings. They were very secretive about it, and they pretended it didn't exist. And when we wrote about it, they would, of course, give the eye roll and poo-poo any consideration of this, saying, oh, yeah, you guys are seeing conspiracies. But now, all these years later, 70 years later, it's proven that they have installed prime ministers, presidents, heads of the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, top executives of major corporations. So we can go into some of that if you like.
Yeah, let's do that because, I mean, when you look at this list of participants, I mean, this is, as I mentioned, the intro, who's who. I mean, you got a lot of political figures. There, those with financial power, technological control. They're not coming together for a Sunday school picnic. Tell us about some of the individuals, some of the key players that involve, some of the names that jump out at you, Bill.
Well, yes. So it's interesting because their list of participants for 2026, which they sent out in their press release, goes alphabetically, and it begins with Stacey Abrams, USA, CEO of SageWorks Production. Well, most Americans are at least familiar with the name, Stacey Abrams. She ran for governor in Georgia twice, and ran for the Senate. She has not achieved those positions, but it's very interesting. Who is she? She really came out of nowhere. She had no real pedigree or qualifications to really jump her to this kind of an exclusive position at Bilderberg. Why has she been featured not just this year, but last year? She's also a life member of the Council on Foreign Relations.
Wow.
She 2 years ago, when the Council on Foreign Relations had its 100th anniversary, they featured her right on the front page of their celebration booklet, an online cavalcade of photos. So she has been groomed and schooled for this. Her claim to fame was being the first black woman candidate for a major party in Georgia, for the Democratic Party. And she comes from a very radical background. She was Black Lives Matter before BLM was a thing. She was back in 1992. There's photos of her up on the Internet of her burning the Georgia state flag in 1992 while a college student. And now she wants to be the governor of Georgia. Yeah. Well, actually, she wants to be president, and she has some big, powerful elitists who are promoting her. Not the least of which are her Bilderberg colleagues. One of her other main financial supporters is the billionaire family, the Sandler billionaire family, out on the West Coast. Steve Phillips is the founder of Power Pack, which is a San Francisco-based
Okay, we're going to cut away here for a break. We're talking with William F. Jasper today, investigative reporter and senior editor at The New American, talking about the Bilderberg Group meeting in Washington, D.C., and many wonder, how does Stacey Abrams rub shoulder with these individuals? We'll be back with more after the break. This is Crosstalk.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, scientist and creation researcher with the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, any new dinosaur extinction theories?
Of course, Chris. There's always a new theory. Here's a new one. We all know that methane gas can be deadly at high concentrations. Methane gas is found in gases exuding from deep inside the Earth, and it's proposed that a huge methane belch of gas came up from the Earth's mantle, spread out over the land, and killed off all the dinosaurs. Well, that's convenient. That's the kind of theory you can't prove one way or the other. But here's something else to think about. The dead dinosaurs are all found in water-deposited strata. They're not just laying on the surface of the ground having been poisoned by methane gas. They were buried by water. I think it's the Great Flood of Noah's Day. That flood may have included a lot of methane, but it was primarily a water flood. That's the evidence we have. It all goes back to Genesis.
Thank you, Dr. John. This is Chris O'Brien. Thanks for tuning in.
You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America. William F. Jasper with us today from The New American. And friends, they've got quite an expose they'll be putting out concerning this, and we'll give you that information. Be ready to jot down some information coming up. Bill, we're talking about some of the notables that were there. You mentioned Stacey Abrams, first on the list, but sure doesn't end there. Many other names, some political, some financial, but it's quite the who's who.
Absolutely. And in fact, just going down alphabetically, one of the next ones is Anne Applebaum, and she, of course, is well known as a writer has been for the Washington Post, New York Times, many others. She's a staff writer now for The Atlantic, and she is married to the foreign minister of Poland, who was also there. And the two of them, so they're a power couple, they have all been very critical not only of Trump, but also of Viktor Orban, and played a role in undermining him in this last week's election. So, others that are on there include, and this is of concern, Douglas Burgum. He's the Secretary of the Interior. Why should that be of interest? Well, unfortunately, in the Trump administration, it's going forward in some ways the same as the Biden administration, of moving to bring AI data centers to the United States. And a lot of the push for this is to sell off public lands in the West to accommodate that. And we saw the same thing with regard to the Trump administration's flip-flop on the CO2 pipelines, where originally it looked like they were going to be opposed to it, which is taking public domain farmland away from farmers and putting these huge, monstrous, ridiculous CO2 pipelines. They say they're going to take CO2 out of the air and pump it down into the ground because we need to do that for climate change.
Yeah,
so
carbon capture.
That's it.
You know, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's lots of other, of course, Chrystia Freeland of Canada, who stepped down after the disaster she helped create under the previous administration there, and now the current administration of Justin Trudeau, and now the current administration of Carney, he was there represented as well. So you see a lot of the big names in politics, and particularly in finance. And one of the big concerns that I've written about for the past 10 years is the increasing number of Turkish individuals, mostly from big Turkish companies like Ali Koch, vice chair of Koch Holding, which is one of the largest financial institutions in Turkey. And why is this important? Because the globalists that are in the Bilderberg, Trilateral, Council on Foreign Relations, Royal Institute of International Affairs, have been pushing for the past, decade and a half to bring Turkey into the European Union. And what would that do? Well, Turkey is the largest Muslim country in Middle East, European area. And if they were brought in, then under the current Schengen rules, tens of millions of Turks, Muslims, would be able to freely travel and migrate throughout Europe, which would thoroughly destroy the remnants of the former Christian Europe. Wow. So that's a major thing, and I see that this Turkish increased presence on the Bilderberg gatherings as further evidence that they're still pushing for that.
Is there leadership to this group?
Yes, so there is a steering committee, and then there's an executive committee above the steering committee. And the steering committee members, for many years, David Rockefeller was the chairman of it, and he was also a member of the executive group. Since he passed away, and Henry Kissinger was another one. Henry Kissinger was an agent of the Rockefellers. He was bought and paid for by them. They put him into the Nixon administration to bring about a number of things. The most important one being to bring about a rapprochement and normalization of relations between communist China and the United States. And Kissinger was the architect of that for the Rockefellers. And then David Rockefeller followed him to China and wrote David Rockefeller being at that time chairman of the Chase Manhattan Bank, the most recognized and revered banker amongst the uber wealthy class in the world. He wrote this astounding article, op-ed for the New York Times, called A China Traveler. And he came back and he said, the social experiment under Chairman Mao is one of the most successful and extraordinary in human history. And he just went on and on praising Communist China. And it was then Chase Manhattan Bank and the Nixon administration that started the decades-long transfer of all of our technology, all of our manufacturing to China, and the huge tsunami of so-called students and research scientists from China to the United States. So the current situation that we face with China as our primary enemy and threat, existential threat to the United States, was built by the Bilderberg influence. If we had time, we could go through all the different people that were involved in that and how one policy after another following the Bilderberg meetings pushed that forward. And we don't know exactly what was said at this meeting, but China was number 3 listed in alphabetical order on their discussion agenda this year. And undoubtedly... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I find this, they say they have no detailed agenda, no resolutions are proposed, no votes are taken, no policy statements are issued. So when we see the list of discussions on there, we have AI, Arctic security, as you mentioned, number 3 is China. They have digital finance, energy diversification, Europe, global trade, the Middle East, Russia, transatlantic defense industrial relationship, Ukraine, USA, future of the warfare in the West. They're coming together for discussions, no detailed agenda, no policy statements, no votes. What is going on behind those closed doors?
Well, yes. So they say, well, we're just interested in bringing about the world good, so we're working to help make sure things are peaceful, et cetera. Well, and they say that there is no policy agenda, that all of the people meeting there are just there in their private capacity. However, as I talked to you before the show began, we have our 30th anniversary of the New American Magazine, Conspiracy for Global Control. Back in 1996, we did it. It's the whole issue devoted to all these different groups, Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations, et cetera, and we have a big fold-out chart showing their influence in their members in all of the Democrat and Republican administrations going back to Herbert Hoover and all of the major corporations, think tanks, universities, et cetera, and to show how this globalist/communist influence, because there is close working relationship between the globalists, who it seems counterintuitive because most of these globalists are very wealthy millionaires and billionaires, but they have been working very closely with their supposed nemeses in Beijing, Moscow, and Havana for all of our lifetimes and before. So we have actually in our latest 30th anniversary issue, which is coming out, actually going to the printer tomorrow, so those who subscribe to the New American will already be getting it. Those can't will be able to see a lot of it online at thenewamerican.com. But we have, in several of our articles, quotes from Bilderberg attendees, participants themselves, who completely contradict the official claim by the Bilderberg Meetings organization, the Bilderberg Group, that there's no official business or discussions or policies going on there. Willie Clays, who is former EU administrator, and Etienne Davignon, former European commissar and Belgian Minister of State, and Will Hutton, the former British newspaper editor, and all of these were Bilderberg attendees. And we have their own quotes from when they were being interviewed. They say, absolutely, we expect that what we discuss there is to go into policy, and that's what happens.
Wow. Wow.
And we've seen that. We've chronicled that over the years. So
you're saying this next issue coming out is going to be documenting all of this then?
Absolutely, yes.
Friends, again, the website is The New American or thenewamerican.com. And next issue coming out is going to, and they're just going to the printer tomorrow, but is going to be coming out with a lot of this information, a lot of background there as well. And it's not just the Bilderberg, it's several other entities as well, correct?
Oh, yes. So we cover the Bohemian Grove, the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, of course, the Aspen Institute, the Brookings Institution, Carnegie Endowment, Rockefeller Foundation, because most of these programs that they propose have to be then implemented, and so they have a scissors strategy, pressure from above and pressure from below. They have pressure from above by the politicians and the big bankers, the Larry Finks, the World Economic Forum, that's another one that we cover extensively. And then they have pressure from below, who are all the rent-a-mob Marxist-Leninist groups that are out there organizing and demonstrating and rioting for racial justice, economic justice, social justice, environmental justice, LGBTQ rights, etc. Those groups have to be funded somehow. And so at the lower level, then they have billions of dollars that go out from the Rockefeller Foundation, Ford Foundation, MacArthur, Hewlett, Packard, etc. And we cover that and show how the coordination behind all of this. And some of this has been exposed fairly in depth in various congressional investigations, some going back 50 years or 70 years, and some just in the last 24 months. And most Americans have not seen them because, as you might expect, the controlled establishment media, which is totally in sync with the Bilderbergs, they cover this up. They don't want you to know about that.
Friends, you're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America. William F. Jasper is our guest today, investigative reporter, senior editor at The New American. Their next issue going to be detailing many of these issues here today and putting many of these tentacles together to see the common body there. We're going to take a quick break. We're coming back then, and also we'll be in the next segment talking about another event taking place, the National Lawyers Guild, and some significant matters from this organization as well. We'll be back in 1 minute. You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America. Again, the website for the magazine, thenewamerican.com, thenewamerican.com. We'll be back in 1 minute. You're on Crosstalk.
Did you know in 2006, Keith Ellison became the first Muslim elected to the U.S. Congress? He took his oath of office on a Quran. Is one's duty to uphold the Constitution compatible with the teachings of Islam? Most Americans know little about the Quran, who wrote it, and how Islam spread. Following Muhammad's death, the followers of Islam went on a mission to conquer many nations. Islam has affected the Western world from history past to the current headlines. Historian Bill Federer has documented his research in the captivating book, What Every American Needs to Know About the Quran. As Islam advances across our country, this book is a wake-up call for every American. Copies of this book are available for a donation of $20 to VCY. Call 1-800-729-9829. 1-800-729-9829.
William F. Jasper with us today here on Crosstalk, thenewamerican.com, the website, and we're talking about, yes, the Bilderberg Group just met in Washington, D.C. Time just does not avail for us to go into great detail about the full background of this group. We are scratching the surface, though, to give you a better understanding. The next issue of The New American is going to delve further into this. One other question before we move on to the National Lawyers Guild, and I saw the article that Veronica Kralenko had come out with here recently, and she called this a de facto global deep state. And the thought popped in my mind, Bill, how can this be? How can they be meeting in Washington, D.C.? Isn't the Trump administration trying to root us out of, get us out of the deep state and those that have been engaged in the deep state? Your comment on that?
Yes, well, I mean, that does raise questions about, a couple of things. One, is the Trump administration really trying to root out the deep state? And two, if he is, it shows that they have pretty deep claws into our government if they can hold their meetings right there in front of us. Now, for the last 10 years or so, I have said that, hey, we initially, when Trump first announced that he was going to run, we were not big supporters of his. First of all, we didn't know, he had never served in any office, so we had no record to go on, and that's what we go on. That's what our Freedom Index is about at both the state level and the federal level. It's easy for politicians to throw out rhetoric that they think the voters want to hear. It's another thing to actually deliver on it. And the reason our nation has been in a death spiral for so long is because we have been betrayed over and over and over again by politicians, including many Republican so-called conservatives who go in there on big promises and then end up going the same way that we've seen for the last 50, 60, 70 years. So when Trump announced, our first articles were rather skeptical of him, and because not only did we not have a record on him, but the record that we did have was less than stellar. He had a checkered background on a number of things, and on moral issues as well. He was initially, you might recall, in his first run, when he was asked about Planned Parenthood, he said, "Oh yeah, great organization. They're doing a lot of," and then he got a lot of flack from all the pro-life folks, and he changed his tune on that. And he may have just been ignorant on that. But it was very clear very quickly when he started taking an anti-globalist stance, an anti-internationalist stance, and saying, "Look, I'm for America first. Yeah. We have to be for our country and do what's best for it. We're not against other countries." But when he went to the United Nations and when he went to the World Economic Forum, he was getting blasted by all the left and by all the media, by all the establishment politicians. And he started delivering on some of that. And so he was a rather rough character. He wasn't really presidential in what we usually expect. But we needed a fighter, and he was a scrapper, and he was willing to fight. And that became apparent when every day he was being attacked with no let-up, with lawfare, with raids on Mar-a-Lago, with everything that they threw at him, and impeachment, and the riots right on the first day of his inauguration. So it went from the bottom all the way to the top. So you had the revolution from below and the revolution from above. All the big tech was after him. The big banks debanked him. Twitter threw him off at Twitter. So just judging by his enemies, it appeared that, okay, he's not perfect, but he's doing the right things. Now, there's other reasons for concern. Not only is he, as you started the session off with, seeing himself as a messianic character, which he's done a number of things like that, but he has also been flip-flopping on the surveillance state. He's put big tech in charge of the ones that were all against him, Mark Zuckerberg, the rest of the Silicon Valley folks. Bill Gates. He's welcomed them on board and turning over more and more of our data over to them and creating more and more of the superstructure for what Catherine Austin Fitts calls the digital control grid, where we'll be watched every second of the day, all of our data, is going to be digitized. We can be, whatever our savings may be, we can be debanked. We can be told that because our social credit system is not up to snuff, that no, you can't have access to your checking account or your savings account or your 401k or any of those things. So they're very troubling things that we see here, and it appears that they have squeezed him, and has he flipped over to their side, or we don't know, but it doesn't look good. There are
and yet at the same time, Bill, at the same time, I mean, gave quite a challenge to the World Economic Forum, just calling them to task. He's delivered us out from the World Health Organization and the Paris Climate Accord and so many of these things as well that are promoting globalism. He's pulled us away from the brink of these.
In January, he issued that executive order that took us out of 66 UN agencies and NGOs.
That's
and
huge.
That was, at the time, I wrote very cheerfully about that and saying this is a great thing. It's never happened before in the whole history of the United Nations. And then, as he is wont to do, just 4 weeks ago, when he announced that, well, the United Nations is tremendous. It's just tremendous. I'm going to turn the Board of Peace in Gaza over to the UN because it has such tremendous potential. And he used tremendous 3 times in one sentence, saying how wonderful the United Nations is. So it's very frustrating dealing with this because we're not sure which way he is going to flip on some of these things. So, we're very nonpartisan. We try to be totally objective. We're not a cult of personality. We try to give credit where credit is due, and criticism where criticism is due. And we certainly shudder at the thought of another Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, or AOC in the White House, but nevertheless, we can't blindly ignore some of the troubling signs that are coming out from Republicans as well.
Let me move on to another issue, too, that we had planned to talk about. And not only was this Bilderberg group meeting in Washington, D.C., but just over 500 miles away, Detroit, Michigan, there was another group meeting, the National Lawyers Guild. We're about 4 minutes before the break here, but in brief, what can you tell us about this group? They call themselves a nonprofit federation of lawyers, legal workers, and law students that uses law to advance social justice and support progressive social movements. Your comments here on this National Lawyers Guild.
Yes, so I've attended National Lawyers Guild meetings many times over the years, particularly when I was working undercover in the Communist Party, the Revolutionary Communist Party, the Socialist Workers' Party, etc. And from my own experience, I could validate what congressional committees said about the National Lawyers Guild in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. The House Committee on Un-American Activities said it was the foremost legal bulwark of the Communist Party. And they gave a very extensive report on that, a 60-page report. That was in 1950. We linked to it in our article on the New American, the Insider Report. And it said it's the foremost legal bulwark of the Communist Party, its front organizations, and controlled unions. And then they went into detail showing all the various officers and leaders of the National Lawyers Guild who were members of the Communist Party, and showing how in one issue after another, the NLG, National Lawyers Guild, followed precisely the same party line as the Communist Party, and much of the information that originally came out on that came from Communist Party members who defected, who finally realized that, hey, communism isn't right, and they exposed their own activities and those of their fellow members. And when I was attending National Lawyers Guild meetings and Communist Party meetings, there was a big crossover between them, and I know that's still the case today.
Wow. Tell us about their keynote speaker.
Well, yes, so it was very interesting. On Friday, their keynote speaker was one Representative Rashida Tlaib, Democrat from Michigan. She delivered their 2026 Law for the People conference, and that was in Detroit. And Rashida Tlaib, as most of your listeners probably know, is a no conservative. She's not a Christian. She boasts being one of the first female Muslim leaders elected to Congress, the other being the famous or infamous Ilhan Omar next door in Minnesota. Rashida Tlaib has an abysmal score on our Freedom Index at the New American of 21%. That's 21 out of 100 on constitutional issues. She claims to be a practicing, observant, devout Muslim, but she supports all the so-called LGBTQ, LMNOP rights. She is for abortion. She supports a lot of things that even Muslims do not support. And so it appears that she, like Ilhan Omar, is really using Islam as a crutch, as a camouflage, to really cover her Marxist-Leninist positions on things. Probably one of her most infamous notations is, right after being elected the first time, and after Trump was elected, she says, she said, what are we going to do now? We're going to impeach the blankety blank, using a very vulgar F-bomb. So that's typical of her mode of operation. So the National Lawyers Guild is today in the forefront, along with its sister organization, the ACLU. The National Lawyers Guild, the ACLU was also founded by communists, such as Helen Gurley Flynn and others. But the ACLU in the 1950s decided they had to appear a little more moderate, so they said that communists could no longer be members. So they all went into the National Lawyers Guild.
Okay, we'll be back in a minute. Our number 800-733-9829.
For the Worldview Report, I'm Brandon House. Our website's worldviewtube.com. Well, many online are upset, and rightfully so, about an image that President Trump put out that, as the media's calling it, looked like a Christ-like figure, putting his hand on the forehead of a man, apparently to heal him. Was it meant to be an image of someone healing the nation, President Trump healing the nation, anointing with oil? I don't know. It wasn't well advised, but he's now pulled it. But the bigger point to me is many of the Catholics online and even Christians in the Protestant world that are having a fit. Yet where are they in calling out Pope Leo, which I guess is how this all started with an argument between the two men? Where are they at calling out Pope Leo and the leaders of the Vatican or their local priest who believes that the Pope is the Holy Father or the Vicar of Christ on earth, or that priests can forgive or absolve sins, or the Eucharist calling down Christ into the wafer to be slaughtered over and over again? Where is their condemnation of this heresy? I'm Brandon House.
If you have a question or brief comment, our number 800-733-9829. William F. Jasper with us today. He is an investigative reporter and senior editor at The New American, and again, their website, thenewamerican.com. That's thenewamerican.com. And, I see also, as we were just talking, Bill, in regard to the National Lawyers Guild, that they seem to be great defenders of America-hating radicals.
Absolutely. So going clear back to the various trials of of the Communist Party members and of Black Panthers and of the PFLP, for instance, the Popular Front for Liberation of Palestine, the LA8. National Lawyers Guild attorneys have been in the forefront of that. When we had all the Antifa riots around the country and BLM, National Lawyers Guild is always there. They pass out things. If you get arrested, or here's your rights, demand your rights. If you get arrested, call us. When several hundred, I think it was over 200, it was 240 or something like that, Antifa violent demonstrators were arrested in Washington, D.C. during the first Trump inauguration. NLG was there to defend them and worked with their people inside the Obama administration at that time in the DOJ, and the DOJ essentially just let them all off. So that's how they've operated. They've been doing that for, it was clear back in the 1930s when they joined up with the International Association of Democratic Lawyers. That was the official Soviet Union front, and they still, on their website today, they say they are a member of the International Association of Democratic Lawyers, which is a communist front started during the Stalin years.
Let's go to the phone lines. We've got Lamar Renee calling in from New York. Hi, you're on the air.
Thank you. I just want to say that I feel your guest's comment in reference to President Trump and the United Nations is unbalanced. He's under a lot of political pressure to execute his Gaza peace plan, particularly, I believe, from the Middle East nations, and therefore has to accommodate some of the concerns that are brought before him. And I think that needs to be included in any criticism of his international political position.
Okay, thank you very much. And yeah, we were not even bringing up the Middle East.
I would agree. I would agree. President Trump, as I said, is not perfect, but even if he were, he was handed a loaded deck when he came in the first time. And he has said later he didn't know enough about Washington, D.C., didn't know who was who. He had to rely on other people to tell him who to put in place. And he ended up putting a bunch of Council on Foreign Relations members in various places, and he ended up having to fire them almost within the first few weeks or first few months. And now, the second time around, he is still in a very tough situation. And we don't have time to get into all of the details of that, but I will concede that he is in a very tough position, and anybody would have difficulty dealing with all of that.
And friends, we remind you to pray for those who are in authority over us. The Scripture tells us to do, that we might lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and honesty. We've got Joy calling in from Stoughton. Hi, Joy, you're on the air.
Hi, Jim. I just want to thank you for carrying this today. And yes, I agree with you totally that President Trump needs a lot of prayers because we know he does. We know he does. And Satan's work in this world now is beyond the pale in terms of ramping up. And for your guest, I'd like to commend you for all your activities over your career and now being so active with the New American. Living on a retirement income, I'm wondering if, forgive me, but I'm wondering if there's a coupon. I saw that there's, sometimes you offer a coupon for new subscriptions. And if you could mention anything about that.
Okay.
Well,
that would be appreciated.
Thank you for bringing that up. Unfortunately, right now we don't have one, but we've done that in the past. I will talk with our publisher and see about doing that. But, right now, much of our content is available online at thenewamerican.com. We do have items, a considerable amount of material that we don't publish online that is in the print version. But we'll be glad to consider that. Thank you for bringing it up.
Joy, thank you so much for your call here today. And we're not going to have time, just 90 seconds left here before the end of the program today, but let's just quickly mention here in this final minute and a half, if we can, Bill, you brought to my attention as well that there is another event that's taking place in Europe, Burning Man. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, most your audience probably knows that every summer, usually in the end of July or in August, they have the big, huge Burning Man pagan fest out in the desert in Nevada at Black Rock City. They call it. It's just way out there in the wilderness, and 100,000 Woodstock wannabes end up there. But this includes not just all the hippies, dippies, and yippies from yesteryear, but it includes all of their newer conscripts, and includes many high-tech guys from Silicon Valley. I mean, most of the big tech bros used to go there. Some of them still do. And they're having a big impact on the whole civilization. And this is demonstrated this week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They're having a mini Burning Man. It's called the ESL, European Social Leadership, and it's in Nijmegen, Netherlands. And so they're spreading it all over. They have many Burning Man events all over the world now, and it's advancing the whole program for sexual deviancy and paganism.
Wow. Friends, characteristic. The perilous times here Scripture has warned about as well. Our guest today, William F. Jasper, the website thenewamerican.com. And Bill, thanks for carving out the hour to join us today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And friends, thank you for joining us here on Crosstalk, coming your way daily from the VCY American Network.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Take Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208. Or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.